I'm Alec Kerr, the film critic for the Conway Daily Sun, and I'm joined with a couple co-hosts this week to review Mean Girls.
I am Mackenzie Hester, and this is my boyfriend, Frank Thompson.
I'm her boyfriend, Frank Thompson.
May I have everyone's attention, please? We have a new student.
What's up, Kitty?
Are you trying to make the rest of us feel dumb?
I'm not trying to, it's just happening.
Dear God, woman.
Get in, loser.
Regina George is a scum-sucking life ruiner.
Why is he by our table?
I can hear you, by the way.
Can you hear me now? We're gonna make her pay.
Girls are made deranged by what's called hormones. WHO.
What is going on?
Don't worry about it.
Dance break.
Why is this so tight? I mean, you've had it since the 6th grade. You're probably maturing.
It's funny how the mean girl opened all the doors. I've been told y'all I'm the best Regina George.
We as women have to support each other.
If you need to talk to me about anything, boy troubles, blackheads, or alcohol poisoning, I have been through it all.
Rachel Hamilton fills her inhaler with vodka.
Oh, that's how you use it.
Slay, queens. Slay like no one's watching. But everybody's watching. Because you're gorgeous.
Haley Freilinger has, what's this?
Hairy nips.
Good Lord.
To start off, I wanted to know, what were your experiences with the original film?
So, 2004, I was 5.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I was not a fan when it first came out. And I was watching an interview with the new cast of that, and they're all fairly around my age. They got asked the same question, and it's like, I don't really remember, because I wasn't going to see it in the movie theater. I don't remember that first time I saw Mean Girls. It just feels like it was always a part of my life, something that I always really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I'm along for the ride. So,
Had you ever seen the original?
Yes.
well, I'd seen it once before, and then again, very recently. I don't really have any connection with the original musical, but I did know it was in existence because of Mackenzie. It's difficult not to if you're around her for long enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original one, it just didn't come out in my time, kind of like you were saying, you know? So I knew about it. People made a ton of memes, you know, like the hair's full of secrets, the getting hit by the bus thing.
It's been super quoted. It's become part of the culture.
Yeah, and like the fetch line too. So I knew about it, but I didn't have that connection that I see, you know, people kind of above my age have with it.
Right. I was 21 when it first came out, and I was in college, and I remember, because you know college people, they're very snobby about that sort of film, and I remember like, oh, it's gonna be so bad. I'm like, I think it's gonna be awesome because it's Tina Fey.
Yes.
And so I remember being like ahead of the curve.
Okay.
You knew it was good.
I knew it was gonna
You
be
knew
good.
it was fetch before.
Yeah, and it happened.
Yeah.
So, and I loved it from the beginning. And the thing was, like, I liked it, but then as time passed, because it's been 20 years now, I've grown to like it more. It's one of those movies that I basically have the entire script memorized.
Yeah.
Anytime I watch it, I can call out lines.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen the Broadway musical, but I'd listened to the score, and the songs are great.
So fun.
So I was excited to get to see this new version that kind of blends the original film with the stage version, comes up with new jokes, a new angle on the material. So I was excited to see it, and it didn't really let me down.
No, I was very pleased because I also huge fan of the stage musical. I was telling Frank that in like 2017, 2018, when the Broadway version came out, that was like the only thing that I listened to for a little while. And then,
Oh, yeah.
and then like,
I can attest to that.
the day after I told him this, I found a journal entry from the summer of 2018 where I wrote, also, the Mean Girls musical, it's my jam right now. So that tells you all you need to know about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of this new version?
So, you know, the only exposure that I really had to the new version was like being in the car with Mackenzie and hearing the songs. And I did like the songs. I thought they were really clever. I liked kind of how they went. And so really the only point of comparison I had with this new version was, you know, the songs from the original musical and the original movie, which I should say that I do really like, even though I'm not like, you know, I didn't grow up with it, you know, in my childhood. I think some of the songs that were adapted to the screen, you know, they all had to change in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And some of them did it really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, I think Stupid with Love is one of my favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't one of my favorites when I listened to the original musical cast, but especially with the visuals, I think they did a really nice job of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing with just listening to a musical is sometimes you don't fully get the context.
Yes.
And once it's in context, that's when the song can really come alive.
Yeah.
Well, like with the song Sexy, he was like, I don't understand how that works in the musical. And then I showed him the Broadway clip of Katie Rockefeller doing it, and he was like, okay, this makes sense.
And the way they did it in the movie was really clever because it starts with the character, Karen, starting and then saying, oh, wait, I screwed up. I need to do it again. And they make it a TikTok video.
Yeah.
And like, oh, wait, I screwed up. I need to start the TikTok video again. And that was really smart and really clever way of integrating that. And then it becomes a whole bunch of people all doing TikTok videos, and it becomes like it was a TikTok trend. And it was a very clever way of making it a film.
Because I also think that that's one of the questions that people had going into this is how was social media going to play a part?
Yeah.
Because it's been 20 years. TikTok, Instagram, all of that is a huge thing now, especially for that high school age, and it really affects the way that people share information. And so there, even besides that number, there were a lot of ways where social media got incorporated. The minute that the Burn book gets released, they're taking photos of it and spreading. And so I really liked that incorporation of social media as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was really well handled. Because I've seen some people complain, like, oh, why does this movie need to exist? There's no reason for it to exist, except for the fact that it has been 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years ago, social media was in its infancy. It basically didn't exist the way it does now. And so the fact that so much of it is about bullying on social media and how, oh, who's more popular, who's less popular on social media, and the fact that the Burn book in the original was distributed through photocopies.
Sure.
Now it is just dropped in the middle of the hallway and then let it loose, and people would in reality probably really would be taking pictures and sharing that and making videos, and that was a really smart way of modernizing it and making it relevant to today.
I think also, like, I watched Mean Girls, the original film, and part of me is like, you know, my high school experience was not these ultra popular, cliquey people, and I was really interested to see how they would adapt that to a more modern kind of high school. And, you know, for certain pieces of the film, you kind of need to have, like, the plastics. They're still the plastics, and they still need to be that. And, you know, one of the questions I had was, you know, how are they going to integrate the way that teens talk and communicate and share things with each other? Because it's sometimes, I mean, not, you know, just with Mean Girls, but with a lot of films made where the executives aren't, like,
on the pulse of today?
Yeah, they don't have their finger on the bleeding edge of culture. You're always, like, kind of worried, like, how are they going to do that?
Yeah.
You know, in a way that feels authentic and not, like, stereotypical, I want to say, out of touch.
There was a party scene where a rumor is spread.
Yeah.
And it's done by text.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is very accurate.
Yes. And you could see like the bubble, the text bubble, and then she would erase it, and then she would keep going. I'm like, that's,
Yeah, and it was just the cattiness and the sort of backstabbing. And that was sort of the modern take of the three-way call attack from the original.
Yeah.
People don't call each other anymore. They don't talk on the phone anymore.
Don't.
People are terrified of talking on the phone these days. So it would be sort of that sneak attack via text now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I wanted to talk about it again. Like, the way that those Broadway tunes were put onto the screen, there are some of them that I really liked. There was one song that you showed me that was super show-tuney, and I really liked it. Stop? Was it called? It was called Stop. Yeah.
Because Damien's songs aren't really in the new movie version.
There was a lot of songs cut.
Which I understand. But the actor that played Damien was, in my opinion, one of the best vocalists in the show, so that was a little hard for me, but...
Yeah, and the actor playing Damien, and I love the original Damien, but he might be better. He's just... And I think part of it was, because even 20 years ago, being gay in high school, you very much would have to repress it. And he's also kind of ostracized, but he's actually able to be... to quote the line, too gay to function, he actually seems very gay, where the original Damien really didn't seem that gay. So he just had such this sassy attitude. Yeah, just the sassy attitude, like some kind of attitude you'd see on like Drag Race, where it's just super sassy, super just reading everybody.
The fan moment.
Yes, the fan moments. He was great. I loved like every line read he had, even like the iconic line reads that I was expecting. He put a twist on it, like the "You go, Glen Coco." That line is so, but the way he put his spin on it, I was like, yes, great, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
So, speaking of the musical numbers, what I did really think was good is that, because a lot of people, they do have a struggle with musicals. Some people just shut down with musicals because, like, I don't understand. People don't just burst into song in real life. It's like, well, yeah, obviously they don't.
They haven't met me.
But basically all the numbers were either on TikTok or they were very clearly fantasies.
Yes.
That the people, like, it would be Katie watching Regina George enter the room, and it's her imagining her singing, my name is Regina George, and I am a massive deal.
Yes.
And Stupid in Love, again, it's her fantasizing about this boy that she likes. And I thought that was very, very well done. Or the song Apex Predator, where everyone is just going crazy, which is also a throwback to the original, where Katie would imagine it as if it was jungle people. Yeah. And that just takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I think the way they integrated, the non-speaking cast of high schoolers, it's really cool. And I really like that with a lot of, musical movies where during each musical number, it's kind of a heightened sense of reality.
Yes.
The way they transitioned from the Savannah to high school was really cool.
Yeah.
The way that they opened it up with the intro, I thought that was super well done.
It was very cinematic. It was playing with the aspect ratio, because it was just a phone screen, like a TikTok, and then it expanded out to widescreen.
In the garage door.
And it also, it set the stage really well for everything that was about to follow, because you had those, you knew who those characters were from the original movie, and then you have, a very obvious, social media reference, and they're doing it on video, and it's going to be a very different show. I heard someone say, or I heard you say, someone said online that this was like a yassified version of the original Mean Girls. I didn't feel that way.
I didn't know. No.
I was a little bit nervous going into it just from some of like the press shots and stuff like that. But then, I think it was just like one of the pictures of Janice kind of like scared me for what I was about to watch. But then even just from that opening sequence of her and Damien, I was like, no, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. And they were perfect together.
They were so,
I need to look up the names. But Janice, Jaquel,
Spivey, and it's the girl from Moana. I'm going to butcher her name, but it's Auli'i Cravajo.
Yeah, I think to look at this. Auli'i.
Auli'i.
Yeah. So yeah, and she was Moana, and so you have Moana in this as Janice, which is just freaking perfect.
And Renee Rapp, who
I was wondering when you were gonna.
I've refrained for quite a while.
And I've noticed.
I'm a very huge Renee fan.
Yeah.
And when she was 19, she was Regina George on Broadway.
Yep.
She wasn't the original, but she did it at a very young age. And so really ever since like 2019 when she was in it on Broadway, I've been like waiting for this.
Yeah.
She has the voice of an angel. She got to reprise the role, and I just thought that she was just the most perfect modern day Regina.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, and I have to say, I feel like this Regina is a significantly, I was going to say a little meaner, significantly meaner. There's just a menace to her that is just so intimidating and threatening.
Someone gets hurt. That was...
Yeah. Well, I think that's the benefit of having those musical numbers is you can take that emotion, that sense of like evilness, that's not a real word, and heighten it with the music, with the dancing, with the lighting effects. You can really go all out, whereas, in the original Mean Girls, she wasn't a nice person, but you couldn't have some extravagant number
to channel that.
Yeah, there's a song that's during this house party where she's like literally prowling around the party, and it goes back to the whole Predator idea where she's going to get her ex-boyfriend back, and the way it's done and the way it's shot is really well done.
The way that she goes up to everyone, and she's like even messing with Katie, and it's like you're scared of her, but you kind of are really enthralled by her. And even I was watching an interview with Tina Fey, which thank goodness she was also in this movie. But it's like, she's so mean, but you really want her to like you.
Yeah. And it isn't a sequel, but there is sort of a nod to the original with the return of Tina Fey and Tim Meadows. That I was like, oh, that's nice. It made me really happy. Like, that's just lovely. That makes me really happy. And there is, I don't want to spoil it, but there is one returning cast member from the original outside of Tina Fey and Tim Meadows. Don't want to spoil it because it is a big moment. It kind of already has been spoiled, but...
Well, yeah, there are a lot of nods, and I feel like with something like this, there kind of has to be.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of iconic lines and iconic moments that, like, if you took it out, people would notice.
Yeah.
And, if you leave it in, people are going to be like, well, it's not the same as what they did before. So it's always a very tricky line to walk in regards to things like that.
Right.
Like, do you want to lean super heavy on the nostalgia factor, or do you want to subvert people's expectations maybe? They do that a lot.
And there's also, aside from that iconic cast member, Ashley Park is also the French teacher, and she was the original Gretchen Wieners on Broadway.
Okay. All right, there you go.
So the minute she came up, I start tapping Frank. I was like, I'll explain this to you in the car.
Yeah.
Nice. And to your point, like, they really do find the balance of, you do have to have the fetch isn't happening, you go like Coco, those lines, but they do sub in some other jokes and put some spins on it that are pretty clever. Like, instead of one of the things they try to do to Regina to make her downfall and how it actually becomes a new popular trend. I don't want to spoil what it is, but it's a new one, and it's just as funny as the original.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it is really kind of fun in trying to keep it nostalgic, but also new, and finding that balance.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that. I also appreciated that there was an attempt to humanize some of these mean girls, especially Gretchen. Gretchen has a song that is really poignant. You can see that she is just this really kind of tortured lackey. She feels like she has to be with Regina.
Right.
And the way it's done, and that it's this, she sings
box.
along with the music box. I thought that was really
with
clever.
Regina's face in the mirror. We were saying that we kind of both felt like that happened a little bit early, and it was a little bit on the nose. But I do like the song. I always would skip that song when I was listening to the Broadway soundtrack, but having B.B. Wood as Gretchen do that, it just really softened her and brought out this side of Gretchen that I think we did need to see because
Yeah.
she is, at the core, I think she is a very sweet and soft
Right, and there's a
individual.
line later that, you know, oh, Gretchen is soft, and then if you didn't have that didn't have that song, it would be like, well, what are you saying? Like, yeah.
Right.
And there is a little humanizing of Regina, not a ton, but you do, like, people don't see me as a human, and so there is that, which I don't ever really feel like Regina really ever got humanized.
Yeah.
In the original. There was a deleted scene from the original Mean Girls that actually got put back into this one, which was the scene in the bathroom. There's a
That
scene
was
between
so
Regina and Katie in the
That was
bathroom where
really
they kind
good.
of apologize to each other. And that was a scene that was originally shot for the first movie.
Okay.
But they cut it, and now this is the beauty of getting to do a movie 20 years later.
You get
Tina Fey can be like, oh, well, you know, people kept telling me I made a mistake cutting that scene. Now I get a chance to put it back in.
That is cool. I did not know that.
Yeah. Now you know.
Come hang out with Alec and you'll learn new things.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Angourie Rice was a good Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think I just keep getting caught up on the vocals.
Yeah.
And I don't think that she was the strongest vocalist in this show. It also, like, they also, not only did they adapt the songs for a film, I think that they made it less show tunesy, which that's just
Right.
like my theatrical brain going, quit dropping the lines, the notes that you're singing at the end of a sentence or at the end of a word, like hold it out. But they're
Right.
not going to do that in a movie.
No,
so.
and that's the adapting stage for film, and
Yeah.
you do have to make different choices.
Grain of salt.
Yeah, and really the standout song, and it's the standout song I always thought just listening to it was "I'd Rather Be Me,"
Oh yeah.
and she just kills it. That song.
Yes.
It's Janice, and the way they also use it to sort of subvert something you know is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it got a shock and laugh out of me, even though I knew it was going to happen,
Yeah.
because your attention is put on Janice. And so you kind of forget, you know it's going to happen, don't want to spoil it, but when it does happen, it's like,
Oh yeah.
there it is.
There it is. Yeah. I love that song. That's always been one of my favorites. I thought I felt a little bit questionable about some of the choices. I don't know why she needed to, like, go into the boys' locker room and do certain things.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's like my theatrical brain that's like, oh, we're really like putting on like a close-up production here.
Right.
That's not. I'm not a film actor. I don't do
And
that
that's the
kind
thing.
of stuff.
I feel like a lot of times, and the example I always use of this is the producer's musical movie, is so flat and so uninteresting because it's basically them putting the show on on film, and all the actors in it, Lathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, are still singing as if they're singing to the back of a theater, and that doesn't work on film. This did a really good job of making it feel cinematic and making it feel like a film experience rather than, oh, here's the stage version just filmed, which is fine. There's plenty of shows that are just the stage version filmed, but if you're doing a movie, you have to find a way to make it a movie.
Like the reveal of Regina George, that was I really liked that.
And it felt very cinematic,
Yes.
and just the atmosphere, the fact that, as I said earlier, it kind of becomes a fantasy sequence. Everyone freezes except for the singer. That's done a few times. It's just really well handled.
I had so much fun watching this movie.
Now, there were, I think, like 4 songs cut, and I understand part of that was trying to keep the movie under 2 hours.
Yes. It Roars was replaced by What Ifs, and I kind of liked it better, especially for a movie. And then they also, like, there was the really clever weaving into of the line, "My limit does not exist." I really liked that, and that was like, and knowing the original movie and knowing the limit does not exist like that, I was like, oh, you're right. My limit doesn't exist either, girl. Let me go. Like, that made me like want to root for Katie from the beginning.
Were there any songs that you felt them missing?
So, the Damien songs, like we kind of talked about earlier, are very Broadway, very show tunesy. Where Do You Belong and Stop. And Where Do You Belong in the musical, that's the one where Damien takes Katie around and shows her all the different cliques, which I feel like because Jaquel is such a good vocalist, and I feel like, and they did have all of the high schoolers doing these dance numbers,
Yeah.
I feel like that could have been a really fun addition into the movie, but because of so many of the songs were these kind of like fantasies, maybe it necessarily wouldn't have worked. I just love the song Stop. I don't think that it really fit into the movie. It's just he's such a good vocalist and kind of got cut.
A song that I thought would have fit, and I was expecting it, and I was looking forward to, was like, Whose House Is This Now?
Yeah.
Like, it's this big house party scene. It could still have been portrayed as like a fantasy of this is what Katie is seeing while this house party is happening.
She's never been to a party
Or it could have
before.
just been because it's the character that is already established as being a rapper.
Yeah.
So it could have just him.
Oh, that would have been funny.
So I felt that was a loss. And there is a song that Aaron has, the boyfriend, that I feel like really gives him a character and fleshes him out. And also, the song is basically saying, I want you to just be you. I liked you as you.
Yeah. Right.
And they could have even just incorporated some of that dialogue into the movie, because it felt like it missed something. So those are the two songs I really thought, and I get it why they were probably, because they were both back to back.
Yeah.
And so maybe they thought it would have ruined the pacing of the film, but I don't know. I felt those songs missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't see as much of Aaron.
Yeah.
And then the reveal of what Regina had done to him, that did, it made me ache for him, but we hadn't seen as much of him that I didn't have as much of a connection to him as I did to some of the other characters.
Yeah. And I do want to say that I think the title, it earns its title. I feel like, as I said, Regina feels meaner, but also Katie. It feels like she actually did become a mean girl. In the first one, it just seemed like kind of she got caught up in the moment. But there's a moment in this where she actually does become the new alpha. And it is cold and harsh. And I was like, oh, you did become a mean girl.
She did.
And I think they really did lean into the whole mean girl thing. And yeah, I thought that was well done.
I thought it. I was a little bit scared, like I said, but after seeing it, I was so pleased.
Yeah.
I was very pleased.
And I've seen, you said you've watched some interviews, so maybe you've already heard this question. It's been asked to a lot of the cast members. What would you like to see another movie be given the musical treatment?
Oh.
Like any movie, be given the musical treatment.
Big Lebowski.
Oh, yes.
Go away.
Yes.
What?
I could see that.
Or The Dark Knight.
A Batman musical would be...
Oh my God. They could have a whole like a Spider-Man the musical fiasco. Where Batman flies in and.
What movies do I like?
I've heard a couple of the cast members from Mean Girls say, because they're in the same mindset of 10 Things I Hate About You would be a great musical.
Yeah.
And I could see that. I have a fondness for movies that have been turned into musicals that should not work, and somehow they do, like Evil Dead the musical or Toxic Avenger the musical.
I have not seen Evil Dead the musical.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah?
And it's really, really good.
Okay.
Trust me, and it's an experience watching it. But I would love to see Killer Clowns from Outer Space as a stage musical.
Oh my God. You are completely correct in that one.
That's the one I want to happen.
New project.
Well, because the costumes are all there, you know, all of the set pieces. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
And I love the theme song, so you can just jump off from that point. That sets the tone for everything. So that's where my mind's at.
I like it.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the movies I like are kind of darker themes. I don't know, when I think of some of my favorite movies, I think of Jojo Rabbit. I don't want to see that. I don't need to.
I could.
I don't need to.
Rabbit.
It would be a very the thing with Jojo Rabbit
But
is
like the way that
the tone
Hitler
of it
is portrayed in it, maybe it could work. But
the tone of that is so specific though.
It's so
Like I would hate to see that like become a stage version and then like some community theater try doing it and get the tone of it completely wrong.
And then I'm like wondering like, would Wes Anderson films work as musicals? I don't know.
I think
That's
so
interesting
much
because
of that is
one of the cast members, I forget which one, they said Moonrise Kingdom should be a musical.
Yeah, I mean with Wes Anderson, I'm not a film buff.
Yeah.
But like the camera work in his movies and like how specifically set up that
everything
has
is
to be.
symmetrical.
Yeah,
every
it's
single
got
shot.
You'd need to be very careful with that.
I think the one that could work with, because so much of it is about putting on productions, is Rushmore.
I haven't seen that one.
Rushmore, it's about this overachieving high schooler, and he runs the drama club, and they do things like Apocalypse Now, the stage version. And
so that could be.
So you could do that, and it could be very clever.
I like it.
All right, so we've done it. We've run out of time.
Thank you for
so
having us.
it seems like it's a pretty rave review across the board here.
Rave review, Renee rap.
Yeah.
Rap review.
Yeah.
There you go. And you're a super fan for the musical, so that's a pretty high endorsement.
Oh yeah.
And then somebody who's kind of just not really super familiar with it.
I was
enjoyed it as well.
entertained. Yes, very much so.
Watch it, love it. If you think it's fetch, if you love Regina, then go listen to her album Snow Angel also.
There you go.
On streaming now.
I actually did listen to it. It's a good album.
It's so